Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with Simco Training. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I would start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Hi, welcome to another episode of Selling in the Motor Trade. Today, I'm joined with Jeremy Evans from Marketing Delivery. And for those of people who don't know Jeremy, people hiding under a rock there, Jeremy, firstly, welcome aboard to the podcast.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me.
And can you tell us a little bit about how did you first get started in the automotive industry, and then maybe digital marketing after that? But where was your career path up to launching marketing?
I started before I started in automotive, I was in high street retail. So I worked for Boots the Chemist. I was a store manager, and I did a lot of kind of secondments in the marketing area with them, and wanted to specialise more in marketing. I've always been a petrol head, love my cars, so I started looking around for a marketing role with an automotive kind of bias to it. And took the plunge in 2001, I think it was, which seems like a very long time ago now, into automotive with a marketing job with Bristol Street Motors in Bromley.
Okay.
Pre-Virtue days.
The original Bristol Street.
The original Bristol Street, yeah. So I was working in the Bromley kind of market area. I think we had Bromley, Orpington, Dulwich as our dealerships. And initially started in after-sales marketing. That was the role. It was a Ford-sponsored role that kind of placed people in dealer groups. And my managing director there at the time, a guy called John Trow, who I credit with having learnt every basic skill in automotive that you could possibly want to learn. He put me through a very solid kind of training and induction program where I spent time. He wouldn't let me do any day job until I'd spent time in every department. So service department, body shop, sales department, accounts, vehicle admin, very thorough induction into the industry.
It doesn't happen enough anymore, that.
No.
I gotta say, I did the same thing. I started washing cars. It was 18 months of spending in every department. And what a background, though. Does that still set you up in good stead today, knowing how everything works in the dealership?
Absolutely. We often joke that the things we've built at Marketing Delivery, we've built things that we wish we had 20 years ago when we were in dealerships, working in dealerships, because we were there, we felt the pain. We operated Kerridge Rev 7.3,
Wow.
I think it was at the time. We used to generate service reminders by
So we have to tell
matrix.
some people, by the way, that is Key Loop for the people who are not young.
Yes. Now known as Key Loop. Yeah, now known as Key Loop.
Or CDK halfway through, they keep changing their name.
That's it. Yeah, it was basically the dot matrix version of Key Loop back in the day. And we generate follow-up lists for the sales team, literally on dot matrix lists, printouts that we'd hand out to them, and the service reminders. We were lucky in that we could merge to Excel and merge out to Word documents so we could stick in the post to people. And we had a contact center. We would set up one of the first contact centers to make outbound calls for the sales and service. And I sat myself in the office of the new car sales manager for a while just to get an overview of what they were doing, how they were recording inquiries, and the old favorite of the printed inquiry sheet, where the most successful marketing source allegedly was the first box that got ticked on the form.
Yeah.
So
walk in. Yeah.
Well, when we printed reprinted the form, we shuffled the order around of the sources. So we went from the Bromley news shopper being the most important source of new leads to being the Thompson local directory, which, given we'd stopped advertising in the Thompson local directory about 2 years ago, made for interesting reading. So all the things that we've built with tech now, in fast forward 20 odd years, it's basically to try and streamline and get better data out of the processes that have been there for 20 plus years, but with the tech along now to improve them and make them far slicker than they used to be.
So you said you've always been a petrol head, and people who are listening to this, and most people listen to this going for a jog or driving to work. Behind you is a couple of photos of a lovely Ford Mustang there. There's a couple of 911s I can see there. So as a child, were you always a petrol head? Were you the person that all the car magazines?
As a family growing up in South Wales, my dad used to be a member of the local kind of motor club, and we used to go to kind of rallies on weekends, and he'd marshal at these rallies, and I'd stand there as a little kind of 8-year-old boy, with my day glow jacket on as these rally cars went past, and then we used to go to the British Grand Prix at, when it used to be at Brands Hatch and then at Silverstone. So yeah, we've always grown up as a family of kind of petrol heads, really, and I do a bit of racing myself in various series in the UK, and
Oh, okay.
we've got me and my son both race now, so petrol is kind of in our veins, really.
That sounds great. That sounds really good there. Okay, so this is really separates the true motor traders. Now, I'd normally ask, do you remember the first car that you sold? But I suppose
Mm.
your path is a little bit different there. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
working in the different departments, I'm sure you sold a car. I'm sure you spoke to a customer in the service department and told them their
yeah.
tires need to be changed. Do
Very
you
many,
remember?
very many.
Do you remember the first car you sold at all?
It would have been probably a Ford Fiesta in Bristol Street days when somebody came in to look at a car, and or either all the salesmen were busy doing other things,
Yeah.
or I was the only one there or something. So yeah, I remember a few times in the showroom in Bristol Street, just looking around me, going, well, there's nobody to look after this person, so I'll do it.
Yeah.
And just talk to people. And I guess I came about it because of not being a formally trained salesman. I just came at it from a conversational point of view and talked to the customer about what they were looking for, what they wanted. And obviously, the Ford Fiesta or whatever it was the best choice for them, because that's the one they were looking at, and I recognised the signs. I used to have a Saturday job at Boots selling
Yeah.
stereos and TVs, so you learn to listen, don't you? The good salesmen listen
Yep.
more than they talk.
Of course they do.
Whenever I walk into a dealership and I just see somebody talking at a customer, I go, just stop, just wait,
Yeah.
just listen, and then go with something that's going to be relevant. If you can get the customer nodding their head, I always said, if you can get the customer nodding along with you, then you're on the right track with them.
So why marketing delivery? What inspired you to start the company? How was
Yeah,
it your mission evolved over the years to meet the challenges
yeah,
of that dealership? As you said there, that we're building things that we wish we had 20, 30 years ago.
yeah. So I went from Bristol Street to Birchwood, so another dealer group, as kind of dealer marketing manager or group marketing manager there, and kind of wanted to spend a bit of time on the OEM side of things. So I spent a couple of years working with Nissan as one of their regional marketing managers. And I saw how a dealer marketing service worked and provided assets and kind of insights and opportunities for dealers of that franchise to get their message out there. But many of the dealerships that I saw and I worked with in that role were either small 1 or 2 site dealerships that didn't have any in-house marketing expertise at all. They may have somebody looking at the database if they were lucky, but no marketing manager as such to help bring these campaigns together. Or they were multi-franchise, and Nissan was only one part of what they did. So the original plan with marketing delivery was to be that kind of outsourced marketing department for those dealer groups that didn't have an in-house marketing resource. So, and that could then bring, if they were multi-franchise, I would work with their various franchises and making sure they ticked all the boxes for what the manufacturer needed them to do, but then also had some solid marketing in for typically used cars where the manufacturer wasn't particularly interested in that, but that's obviously where the dealer made all their money. So we would do a lot of box ticking to keep the manufacturers happy with new cars, and then go and do what we needed to do with used cars. But that quickly turned into, how do we use tech better? So it was at the dawn of the era where you had people like kind of Tesco emailing people based on club card purchases. You had, Amazon was there and was emailing people, and dealers were saying, well, how come we're sticking things in the post still? Why can't we do these big email campaigns like the high street retailers can do? We've got all this data sitting on these systems. And of course, every time I visited a client, I would be looking at their database health and giving them big long lists of things to go and improve and get better at. And the challenge was then, well, what are we going to do with it once we've got all this data better recorded? What are we going to do with it? So that's when I started looking around for things that we could do with it, and how to do more email marketing, electronic marketing, using the data that we had. But typically, dealer systems didn't have any functionality for that built in. So the very early version of the data hub that we now have was taking data for something like, I think it was eGood Manners at the time, was the main system of choice in dealerships.
We're showing our age now, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, so we are. So that we take that data into a little FileMaker Pro database that's sat on Mac Mini server on my desk, so that we'd have the data, and we plugged that into a third party off the shelf email marketing system to try and do some sales follow up work on inquiry follow up
Yep.
work. And then we started plugging in some DMS data for after sales, so we could do the service reminder programs with it as well. And that was the kind of first iteration. So I set the business up in 2007, and by 2009 we were sending automated emails. Okay, and it's in a very early stage, but using typically e-good manners data
Yeah.
in the sales side of it, and then a bit of DMS data where we could get hold of it in after sales for service reminders.
Yeah, listen, I did a bit of trawling around to a bit of research and on marketing delivery and yourself. And there's a phrase that come up that I really love the idea. You said you've talked about rewarding the lead,
Yeah,
not the lag in running
yeah,
a team. I
yeah.
imagine you talk about the sales team there, or maybe I've got that wrong. How do you encourage that initiative and being proactivity among your staff while ensuring that the business meets its targets? What do you mean, reward the lead, not the lag?
So so the lead is king, and if the data is right around the lead, there's so much we can do with it. Now there are more leads than there are sales execs to process them. So we are looking to say, look, if you get the lead right, you work your hardest to convert that lead while it's hot, while it's in its infancy, while the customer's keen. If for whatever reason you can't get that customer over the line, let us pick it up. So rather than there be a lag, i.e., you've left it alone and you just wait now for the customer to sort themselves out and maybe come back to them, or you might remember, the odd customer that says, "Oh, I was looking for a car and there's one that's just come in." Let us do that. So get the lead right, get the data right, and let us then follow it up. So, for example, we keep all the stock, the inventory feeds coming into our data hub. So if somebody hasn't bought a car, we know what car they're looking for. We know what stock the dealer has. So if another model of that comes into stock or one of the existing ones drops in price, let the tech pick that up and send out,
It,
the email to the customer.
is that because we as salespeople, we tend to be more hunters than the farmers? Is that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I think there's, if you look at the consolidation in automotive in the last kind of 10 years, there are now more groups than there are individual dealerships. So if I'm a sales exec in a dealership trying to keep an eye on group stock, whereas I may have only had 10 years ago, I might have
Good
only had
point.
one or two dealership stock to keep an eye on. I might have 10 or 15 dealers to keep an eye on now.
Mm,
And I'm not going to be able to keep up with the change in stock profile in 10, 15 dealerships for every one of my open leads.
mm.
But the tech can.
Yeah.
So, the tech runs in the background and kind of assesses open leads versus stock profile and decides, let's send some of these cars out to these customers and see what happens. And then the sales exec can pick the lead up again when it gets hot. So, i.e., customers clicked on a button, our system has kicked a lead back over to the sales exec, says, right, Mr. Evans is looking at this BMW 3 Series now on your website. Here's his details. Here's the vehicle details. Basically, go fetch.
Mm.
So the sales exec can work the lead, and we'll take care of the lag. So the tech will run in the background. I keep that customer ticking over until something piques their interest, and then all we need is the execs to keep the data up to date. And to deal with it when the customer does pop back up again, and having clicked the button and we've told them about it, the sales teams then jump on it and get back onto that customer.
Jeremy, can I go back to your early career? You're at Boots there,
Yeah.
and I want to talk a little bit about any mentors or influencers in the business. The reason why I say that, lots of people listening to this will either be senior managers in a business,
Mm.
they've just stepped into maybe their first management role,
Yeah.
and they're having to lead a team. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you firstly, were there any mentors along the way or people who influenced you in your career or lessons you learned that helped shape your leadership style?
Yeah. So when I was at Boots, I took every secondment going. So I did roles in store operations and accounting. I took roles in sales and marketing. I took kind of store management roles. So if there was a role going that needed somebody to cover it for, I don't know, maternity, or somebody had moved on and they were filling it temporarily until somebody else, a permanent appointment was made, I took all of those opportunities. So again, that's what I would say, much like my grounding in automotive came from doing that induction in all the different departments. When in a business, if an opportunity comes up to take on another role for a 3, 4, 5, 6 month period, to broaden the horizons, I would say take it, because that I took every role going.
So
I
true.
also did a lot. I also did a lot of formal management training. So I guess a big national company like Boots, invests
Mm.
quite a lot in that kind of thing. But also when I was at Bristol Street, we were on the Ford College program to go and do our training courses up there. So that kind of team building, and recognizing the stages of a team, the whole kind of, storming, norming,
Mm.
forming, performing kind of,
Good
that kind
memory.
of,
Good
yeah,
memory.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's still true now, because whenever you put, and I see it now with the situation the business is in at the moment, and I guess we'll mention that a bit later on. But we have new people slotted in working with each other now, and recognizing the signs of when things are a bit stormy, but not reacting to it, letting it play out, seeing what's happening, and understanding when to step in when things have got a bit beyond that, or when to just let it go because you can see things coming together. I learned that at probably age, I don't know, 22, 23 on a boots management training course. And that's the stuff that stayed with me ever since. So again, if there are execs out there and sales managers out there that have opportunities to go on external leadership courses and management training courses, I would say take it, because you need to step outside of your environment a little bit and have somebody kind of go through the theory of it, and then you can think, well, how does that apply to me? It's not, he's never worked in automotive, but people are people, and teams are teams. And if you can take some of those observations back and just look at your team with a new fresh pair of eyes, with a bit of a new interpretation behind it, it's really valuable.
Yeah, it's so true when you say a fresh pair of eyes, because I just want to ask, have you ever had to change your management style? For
Mm,
example, I know I'm a control freak and I end up micromanaging everything and
yeah,
actually letting our trainers by the way, I always employ people who've got a lot more experience than I do,
yeah.
but it's still hard to let go sometimes. Did
I've
you
had
ever
to do
find?
that, really. I mean, I joke that I set up a marketing company and I've accidentally ended up running a tech company. And I don't have a tech background. So
Okay.
for the business to grow, I had to let go of the tech side of things and let tech people do the tech for me. I could tell them what I wanted it to do because I understood the dealer processes, the dealer systems, and what the outcome should be. But the terms of how to get there, I had to just learn to let somebody else do that, and I couldn't control everything because that would just stop our growth. If we had to wait for me to understand how to do something, our growth would have been at a crawl. So I
Mm,
had to
mm,
recognize that fact, and recognize that actually I need developers, I need people who build software for a living, and I need
yep.
to tell them what I want and then let them go off and do it.
Mm,
And equally, as the client services team has got bigger as we've grown, again, I've had to let the kind of Andy, my client services director, has been with me at 12, 15 years, whatever he's been there. But let him run things. We brought in Charlotte as an MD for the business 3 years ago to again take that kind of day-to-day operational kind of control of the business to let me look at the horizon and see where we're going with it. So yeah, that's, as you say, go from when you start off on your own and you build up your initial team of one, two, three, four people, and you can be into absolutely everything. When you've got a team of 20 people and 500 dealer rooftops you're looking after, and
yeah.
a tech stack that you've never touched in your life, yeah, you do have to learn to kind of pull back and scan and zoom in, I guess, on the areas that you can be most effective in.
While maintaining the culture, though, because I'm
Yeah.
sure the culture starts from you, and that's still there right from the beginning.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and you're right, we will be talking about the future and
Mm.
what's happening with the business, and I want to get to that. But again, you've got to maintain that culture within another organization. That's got to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
difficult, hasn't it? What do
Yeah.
you do practically? Do you guys do team events? To how often do you get together?
Yeah.
How often because you're all over the country, I take
Yeah.
it. Your
Yeah. Yeah.
people that's got to be a challenge in the modern world.
Yeah, so I mean, tech can help us. So we
Mm,
we we use Teams and Zoom and those kind of things all the time. So every day we have, we call them stand-up meetings, where the tech team are on screen at one of them, and the client services team are on the screen at another, and we just go through, what are we doing today? What did we get done yesterday? What have we got doing today? Has anybody got any challenges they need any help with? Because when people are remote, and some of our developers are overseas, so
mm,
when people are remote, the only way you can check in with people and see the whites of their eyes is if you jump on a Teams call and get everybody to run through what they're doing, and then you can listen out for the trends and say, well, hang on a minute, that person's been talking about the same thing for 3 or 4 days now. Are they struggling? Do we need to help them? Or that person seems to be flying through their to-do list. Have they got a bit of capacity and that how they could help? And you can just kind of see, we very early on said, if you're on a Teams call, your camera's on. You can't,
yeah.
the excuse of I haven't done my makeup or my eyebrows, don't care. I want to see the whites of your eyes. I want to see if somebody looks confident and comfortable, or whether they look
Yep.
like they're struggling.
Yeah.
So that's a day-to-day kind of activity, and then we pull the client services teams and the account managers in kind of every quarter to a physical off-site meeting somewhere where we get everybody to update their client groups and share ideas, suggestions, good practices, successes, struggles as well.
Okay.
And then the social side of it, a few times a year, we've always had a summer barbecue where we get families of and friends together. We used to do it at my house, but then we became far too big for that. So we now take over one of the local pubs in Tunbridge Wells to do that, as well as the Christmas food and things like that. So yeah, it's important to try and get people together. You're never going to get everybody together at every event, but it's important to have a few of them throughout the year. That it could be to quiz night at the local pub, or go bowling or something. But it's important to have a few of those throughout the year, just to give people an opportunity to get together.
Yeah, as a team. Now, let's get a little bit more specific into delivery, if we can.
Yeah,
Okay, so for people who haven't worked with you before, or they don't know you, or someone's from a different country,
yeah,
we have lots of people listen to this in Australia, and Canada, and
mm,
America, and so forth. So I was having a look at some of the case studies of what you've done, and
mm,
there's one case study there where you've actually improved the dealer sales team's performance, jump from, I think it was 9.8 sales per month
yeah,
to
yeah,
14.9 sales per month. I don't quote me on those exact numbers, but
yeah,
that's a huge increase.
yeah,
Practically, how
yeah.
does marketing delivery help that on the sales side of it first?
Yeah. So that primarily comes down to one of two things, really. I mean, it's not as simplistic as this, but it's the easiest way. It's the most measurable way of kind of explaining it. In that, the I alluded earlier to kind of keeping stock feeds updated with open inquiries, and we call that stock alerts. So where we know a customer's come in to look for a car and hasn't bought. When we did kind of lost sale research. In the kind of early years of marketing delivery, asking people the question, why didn't you buy the car that you came in for? The top answers were, it wasn't available anymore. So we started having a look at that and realized that the most popular cars in stock have got maybe 10 or 12 people looking at them. Only one of them can buy it. So what do you do about the other 9 or 10 people that may be looking at that
Well,
car?
traditionally, it
Um,
goes, if something comes in, I'll give you a call, but does that customer ever get
yeah,
called? Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And the other one was kind of price or affordability issues. So that could be part exchange valuation wasn't where I thought it was going to be. Couldn't get the finance I thought I would get, or thought I'd be able to negotiate hard and couldn't. So there was an affordability issue. And the third reason was, as you just alluded to, you would hope that somebody would keep an eye on it and call you back. The salesman never called them back.
Hmm.
So we came up with the program of stock alerts, which kind of addresses those three issues and says, right, okay, if anything comes into stock that's new, anything that's currently in stock drops in price, we will contact the customer. So we check every open lead every 3 days against the inventory feed. And we have a look at those two things: new vehicles in stock and changes in price. Now, depending on the data we get through from the lead management systems, we may not have a lot to go on other than the make and model.
Hmm.
So you could find that you have 5 or 6 cars going out to a customer, one of which could be 70 grand, one of which could be 20 grand, depending on how old that car is, what the spec is. So we kind of got some AI running in the background, which assesses what the customers click on. And if they click on a car that's at 50 grand, then the next time it looks for a car for that customer in 3 days' time, it'll narrow that price band to bring back more relevant stock. And that's where the extra sales start coming from. So around about 10% of people who receive one of those stock alert emails go on to buy a car. It's
Okay.
not always the exact car they click on, but it keeps them coming back to the dealer website, keeps them back in a conversation with the dealership, where, as you said, in a more traditional world, then we're reliant on a sales exec to keep on top of the stock across their group and look to match that manually against the open leads they got. There's too much stock across consolidated groups, and there's too many open leads for somebody to do that practically well enough. So you get the tech to do that, and then you get extra sales.
So, Jeremy, we're in an AI world now,
Yeah,
okay? And
yeah,
the last AM Live conference we're there, I think everyone just had to put AI behind their name,
that's it. Yeah.
okay? And that's what it should be. So I just a practical question there. Are you putting that information back into the salesperson CRM, so that salesperson contacts, or are you going directly to the consumer?
Both.
To
Yeah,
both, okay.
both. So we'll go to the consumer with here's the stock. Have a look at it. Click here. Come to our website and have a look.
Okay.
And then if they take a positive action from that, we'll fire that back to the salesperson to say, this customer is looking at this car on your website now, so that they can do something with it. And then in the background, I call it algorithmic intelligence, is more than what is the AI that we kind of do day in, day out, that we've got all these algorithms running, refining that customer's profile then every time they interact with one of our emails. So whether that's, as I said, to tweak the price search for the next time we look for a car for that customer, or whether it's to recognize that the customer hasn't opened an email, so we'll send them a text message instead. There's always things going on in the background, reassessing the data. Typically the data feeds from the lead management systems come in every day. So again, we can look at the status, and if there's a status change, we can tweak the message that goes out to that customer next. So that we've got thousands of algorithms running in the background, constantly reassessing the data that we see. Be that lead management data, inventory data, customer activity, what button have they clicked on, and have they opened things, or have they not opened things? So those algorithms are constantly running to decide which is the next contact for that customer.
Okay. That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, simcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn. Thank you.